I'm going to be honest with you. This is the second time I made this video because I messed up on the first time. And I'm going to show you where I messed up. Just because I'm fair and I don't need to be lying. Today we're writing equations in slope-intercept form. Here's 3 equations that we'll typically see in an algebra 1 or a linear situation. We got slope-intercept, y equals mx plus b. We talked about that before. Where in order to use this, you have to have the y-intercept. That's the only point you can use is the y-intercept. Point-slope form is a really useful one because for x1 and y1, you can put any point you want to in there. It doesn't have to be the y-intercept. It could be any point. You don't mess with the y and the x, but only the y1, the m, and the x1. And then standard form is really good to like find x and y intercepts with. I may ask you to get something in standard form from time to time. We'll talk about that as we come across there. Now, how to write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form. First of all, you got to understand that it's very easy if you are given the slope and the y-intercept. If you're given the slope and the y-intercept, you simply just substitute them in for m and b, where the slope goes and the y-intercept goes. Some people miss out on that, and it's right in front of their faces, and they ask me what to do. I'm saying, do you understand what this equation slope-intercept is saying? If you know the slope and the y-intercept, you simply put those numbers in. Now, if you're not given that information, what you want to do is follow this pattern here. It says you're going to find the slope in 3 ways. You know how to find the slope, either an equation, a graph, or 2 points, depending on whatever is given to you. Out of those 2 points, or if you're just given 1 point, you pick that point or you use that point. Step number 3 says you substitute the slope and that point into this equation that we just talked about, and those things that are underlined are the only ones that get substituted in for. And I put a slash here because I'm going to use slope-intercept form as well. And so the first thing you want to do is take those 2 points, and I'm going to switch papers here. You're going to take those 2 points and you want to find the slope. So those 2 points are 3, 4, and -1, -2. So step number 1 is I'm going to find the slope, which is -2 minus 4, -1 minus 3, which equals -6 over -4, which reduces to 3 over 2. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 tells us to pick a point. If you're looking at your notes, if you actually wrote that down, step number 2 says pick a point, so I'll pick that one. Does it matter which one you pick? No. Does it say pick first or the second? No. Just pick one. Now, I usually pick a point that got 0s and 1s in it because they're easier to use, but that's just me. Step number 3 says take that point and that slope and substitute them in to this equation right here. So I'm going to do that. Y minus -2 equals 3 over 2 x minus -1. Now be careful with your signs when you substitute in. Notice that that formula has negatives in it. So as we work the problem, understand, always go ahead and take care of your signs first. It just makes life a lot easier. Now the next step you want to do is the distributive property, but I have to pause real quick and show you where I messed up last time. I'm in my video doing my groove and everything is just going great, and then I notice I don't already worked the problem and I put a 2 there. I was just happy to put a 2 there and a 2 there. It's supposed to be a +1. My bad. Oh well. Now I got to do it all over. The next step, it tells you to use the distributive property and solve for y. That's 2 steps really in one. Distributive property only deals with parentheses, so that means this over here. So the y plus 2 just comes down. It don't get to play on that step. Distributive property gives me 3 over 2x plus 3 over 2 when I multiply those two. And the next thing I do is subtract 2 from both sides. Why am I subtracting 2? Again, it says, lastly, to solve for y. That means get the y by itself. So that's gone. And I have y equals 3 over 2x. And when you do the math, you put that in your calculator, it'll be minus 1/2. Notice no pretty whole numbers and stuff like that. You get fractions. So what? It's okay. Now, let me show you the other way to do this problem if you use y equals mx plus b. Now, I don't care which form you use, as long as whatever assignment we do, if it's to be turned in or to be done on paper, you need to show me your work. Now, the way it works is you still got to find the slope. You still have to pick a point, but we're going to take that point and that slope and substitute them in for y, m, and x in order for us to find b. Then we'll know the slope, and we'll know b, that we can write our own answer. So let's try that. The y in my point is -2. Be careful not to intermix points. That's why I like to circle my point or box it. You can't take the x from this point and the y from that point, or vice versa. It has to be all from one point. The slope is 3/2, and the x in that point is -1 plus b. So what did you do? Or what did I do? I substituted those numbers in from what I found earlier. -2 equals -3/2 plus b. Whenever you multiply those, you just get -3/2. Now you got to solve for b, which means get the b by itself by adding 3/2 to both sides. And when you do that, you'll get b equals -1/2. Now this is not your answer. Remember, I asked you to write an equation as your answer. So there's your b, there's your m. Remember I said if you know those two, just substitute them in. You get the same answer. Which one is easier? Whichever one your brain thinks is easier. Which one can you do? Do both of them. Haha, no, I'm just kidding. Pick one. Whichever one makes sense. Alright, let's look at the second problem here. The second problem has 0, 6, and 5, 0. Problem number 2. The point is 0, 6, and 5, 0. You know, actually, I started numbering these. So let me go back to this real quick. Step number 1 is find the slope. Step number 2 is pick a point. Step number 3 is to substitute things in. And step number 4 is all of this stuff right here in order to get me that answer there. Just kind of showing you where all that went. But this is actually also problem number 1. So this is problem number 2. Alright. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but I'm up here and it's all raining, or at least it sounds like it's going crazy outside. My hair gonna get wet. Alright, so step number 1 is to find your slope. Alright, so I'm going to find my slope, which is 0 minus 6 over 5 minus 0, which is -6 over 5. So I did that too quick. 0 minus 6, 5 minus 0. Alright, that's my slope. The next thing is to pick a point. It don't matter which point you pick one. I picked the second one last time. I'm going to pick the first one this time just so you can see. So, after you pick a point, which is step number 2, you substitute that point into y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now, I don't have to simplify any signs, so the next step would be y minus 6 equals -6 over 5x. Distributive property. This times 0 just gives me 0, so I don't have to write plus or minus 0. Then it says solve for y, so you add 6 to both sides and run out of space. So I write y equals -6 over 5x plus 6. Now, I could have did that real quick after I found the slope. You know how? Because what I just boxed up here is your y-intercept. This is the y-intercept. I didn't tell you it was the y-intercept. The instructions didn't say it was the y-intercept, but I know it's the y-intercept because the x is 0. Whenever you have a point where the x is 0, then that y number is your y-intercept. So I could have just stopped right here and simply said y equals -6 over 5x plus 6, which is the same answer. So if you take a little time to pay attention, it actually might make your life a little bit easier when it comes to how to write an equation in slope-intercept form. Now they do stuff. Trying to close up. They do stuff like they'll tell you hints like the x-intercept is 7 and the y-intercept is 4. If they tell you what the x-intercept is and the y-intercept is, for example, the x-intercept is 7, that means it's 7, 0. The y-intercept is 4. That means it's 0, 4. They're basically telling you 2 points. So if you know how to write a point based off of intercepts, then you could actually follow this whole pattern again. Or they'll tell you that the slope is 2/3 and it passes through this point 3, 4. And so they're telling you enough information for you to be able to use this stuff right here. So it's important that you know this and follow this pattern. If you got any questions or I went too fast, write it down so we can talk about it in class. Good day. I'm going to get out of here.